Rome fell in 476 AD. Everyone knows this. But few people know that the real Rome continued to exist for another 1,000 years after that, at the other end of the Mediterranean, on a triangular peninsula where Europe and Asia meet, in a city that called itself New Rome, Second Rome, Tsargrad, and which the rest of the world called Constantinople. While Western kings lived in wooden castles, palaces with golden mosaics rose here. While Europe forgot how to build aqueducts, a sewage system for 1 million people still functioned here. While the West endured its dark ages, libraries burned bright here, markets roared, and philosophers argued. 11 centuries, 88 emperors, never conquered from within. This is Constantinople. These are its streets. It all began with one decision. In 324 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great surveyed the triangular peninsula on the shore of the Bosphorus and decided, here will be the new capital of the world. The location was perfect. Water on 3 sides, a narrow land connection to the west that could be sealed with a wall. The Bosphorus, the only passage from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea, ran directly past it. Every ship, every trade route between Europe and Asia, between north and south, all of it passed through this point. He named the city after himself, Constantinople. 6 years of construction later, in 330 AD, the capital of the Roman Empire was moved here. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed under barbarian invasions in 476 AD, Constantinople kept standing, kept calling itself Rome, kept electing senators, minting coins with Latin inscriptions, observing Roman law. Historians call this civilization the Byzantine Empire. The people themselves never used that name. For them, they were Rome. By the 5th century, Constantinople's population had reached 500,000. By the 6th, perhaps 1 million. The largest city in Europe, the largest city in the Western world. Its defense was the Theodosian Walls, a triple fortification system built in 413 AD. 15 meters high, 96 towers, a moat before the first wall. They stood for 1,000 years, and in that time were breached only once. Inside those walls lived a city that Europe had never seen before, and has never seen since. If you want to understand Constantinople, start with the Mise. The Mise, the main street of the city. In Greek, simply the middle one. It cut across the entire peninsula from gate to gate, past forums, markets, churches, and palaces. On both sides, colonnades. Behind the colonnades, shops. Silk, spices, jewelry, books, icons, weapons. Everything could be bought on the Mise. 5 minutes walk from the Mise, the Hippodrome. If the Mise was the city's artery, the Hippodrome was its heart. An arena for 100,000 spectators. Chariot racing, but more than just sport. The Hippodrome was the place where power met the people, where the emperor appeared in public, where victories were announced, where, on occasion, revolutions ignited. In 532 AD, the Nika Revolt broke out here, the greatest urban uprising in the history of Constantinople. 30,000 people died, half the city burned. Emperor Justinian nearly fled, but stayed. And 5 years later, he built on the site of the burned church something the world had never seen, the Cathedral of Hagia Sophia. When Justinian first entered the completed cathedral in 537 AD, he raised his arms and declared, "Solomon, I have surpassed thee." A dome 31 meters across. It hangs over the nave at a height of 56 meters. Along the base of the dome, 40 windows, and on a clear day, the dome appears to float in the air, because the light from below is blinding and the base disappears. This illusion was intentional. It was a message. The dome is held not by stone, but by God. For 1,000 years, Hagia Sophia remained the largest cathedral in the world. Beyond the Mies and the Hippodrome, residential districts, different on different hills. Wealthy areas closer to the palaces, marble facades, private gardens, private baths. Poorer further out. But even the poor quarters of Constantinople had things no Western European city could offer. Functioning sewage, running water, markets with regular food supply, hospitals, orphanages. Constantinople was a welfare state, 1,000 years before that phrase was ever invented. Constantinople possessed a weapon that no one else in the world had: Greek fire, a liquid that burned on water, that could not be extinguished, that could be fired from siphons at enemy ships and kept burning even at sea. In 678 AD, an Arab fleet besieged Constantinople. The city seemed doomed. And then, Greek fire was unleashed on the Arab ships for the first time. The entire fleet burned. In 717 AD, another Arab siege. Greek fire again. Another fleet reduced to ash. The formula for Greek fire was a state secret of the highest order. Only a handful of people knew it. Production was a state monopoly. Any attempt to export the technology was punishable by death. We still don't know the exact composition. Presumably, naphtha, pine resin, quicklime, sulfur. But precisely how they were combined and why it burned on water, unknown. It was a military technology the world could not reproduce for 1,000 years. But Constantinople had other secrets too. Diplomacy. The Byzantines, as their neighbors called them, were virtuosos of politics in a world of brute force. When they couldn't win in battle, they paid. When they didn't want to pay, they married princes to foreign princesses. When there were no princesses available, they invented titles. Friend of the emperor, brother of the emperor. Words that cost a fortune and cost nothing simultaneously. They sent missionaries to pagan peoples, not only for their souls, but for their loyalty. Cyril and Methodius, who created the Cyrillic alphabet, operated under commission from Constantinople. Every newly converted people became a cultural vassal of Constantinople. This is why Orthodox Christianity spread through Bulgaria, Serbia, and Rus, everywhere following the footprints of Constantinople's diplomacy. Constantinople did not die quickly. It died slowly, over centuries, piece by piece. In 1204, the impossible happened. Crusaders, Christians, nominally marching to liberate Jerusalem, turned and attacked the Christian city of Constantinople, at the instigation of Venice, which disliked the competition. For 3 days, they sacked the city. For 3 days, blood ran in streets that had known no conqueror for 8 centuries. Libraries plundered, churches desecrated, mosaics smashed, bronze statues melted into coins. The 4 bronze horses from the Hippodrome, they still stand in Venice today. The Crusaders established their own state on the ruins, but they didn't know how to govern what the Greeks had built. 57 years later, in 1261, Constantinople was retaken, but it was already a different city. It never fully recovered. Population fell from 1 million to 100,000. Trade routes shifted to Venice and Genoa. The treasury was empty. When in 1453 the young Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II approached the city walls with an army of 80,000 men and cannons, the largest ever cast, there were no more than 7,000 defenders inside the walls. 55 days of siege. The cannons breached the Theodosian walls, the same walls that had held for 1,000 years. On the 29th of May 1453, the Ottoman army entered the city. The last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI, stripped off his purple robes so he would not be recognized as emperor, and threw himself into the last fighting at the walls. His body was never found. 11 centuries, 88 emperors. The end. Constantinople did not disappear. It became Istanbul. Mehmed II did not destroy the city. He rebuilt it, repopulated it, converted Hagia Sophia into a mosque, but kept the walls, the palaces, the aqueducts, the cisterns. Istanbul inherited what it could not break. But the legacy of Constantinople spread far further than one city. When in 1453 scholars fled Constantinople for Italy, they carried manuscripts with them. Aristotle, Plato, Archimedes, Euclid. Works that the West had forgotten for 1,000 years and which survived only because Constantinople had preserved them. These manuscripts became the fuel of the Renaissance. The Renaissance is, in significant part, Constantinople's legacy. Cyril and Methodius gave the alphabet, and today more than 250 million people write in Cyrillic. And on the floor of the Marmara Sea at its shores lie the remains of thousands of ships, merchant vessels, military fleets, pilgrim boats. The traffic of 11 centuries. 11 centuries. This was not just a city, it was an idea. The idea that civilization can be preserved when the world around it collapses. That books matter more than swords. That law is stronger than force. Constantinople lost in the end, but what it protected changed the world.